Hello everyone, it's that time again. It's time for another DC miniature game battle report because this table needs cleared so we can make way for some kind of Christmassy themed layout for the next couple months. So that means DC miniature game, lots of scenery getting thrown ideally. We're skipping a couple of scenarios in the book in order to do a themed one to also celebrate some miniatures getting finished, but we'll take a look at that after we take a look at the heroes and villains that will be going head to head today. So this is the 4-model villain team. We have Doomsday right there, almost front and centre. We have the drowned Bryce Wayne, we have Deathstroke, and then we have Bruce Wayne, the Red Death, and because they have different names they are allowed to be in this team despite not having the Dark Knight affiliation. So just the 4 miniatures. Obviously Doomsday is 20 levels of the 50 allocated, so he takes up quite a big chunk, but we'll see how they do against the slightly larger roster of heroes. So here's the 5 miniature hero team, and as you can see there's 2 very large additions. So we have the 80th anniversary multiverse Batman, who we have seen before. He'll be coming in whenever he pleases. New addition though is, well, it's not even a particularly celebration or a specific celebration Superman, but it's just the new Superman show-offy miniature that's blasting out the Daily Planet. I think it might be the most powerful Superman in the DC Universe game. I'm not sure how the old kind of like classic Christopher Reeve style one is. I haven't seen his card, but he's more levels and more powerful than the Henry Cavill one. Then we have, just to make up the rest of the points, Red Hood again because it's cheap and cheerful. We have classic Green Arrow, not the TV one, so he is actually not as effective, but he is cheaper, so it's just filling space essentially. And then, because he's also got a different name, we have Nightfall Batman, because obviously this is Bruce Wayne, this is John Paul Valley, so we have Nightfall Batman as well backing them up. Let's go take a look at the special scenario we'll be playing today. So the very specific scenario out of the hardback rulebook we're playing is scenario 7, and it's Superman versus Doomsday. So it's got some special rules, 6 rounds, normal game size table, but essentially the focus here is Superman fighting Doomsday to the death, more or less. So there's special rules called Colossus. During the first 2 rounds of the game, Superman and Doomsday can only be affected by attacks and special powers from each other, and can only direct attacks and special powers against each other. And they start, as you can see, separated by, that's 6 inches, separated by 6 inches in the middle of the board, 6 inches away from their relative deployment zones. The heroes have to deploy on this end, villains have to deploy on this end. So for the first 2 full turns they can only attack each other, and can only be attacked by each other as well. So the victory conditions for this one: 5 victory points if either Superman incapacitates Doomsday or vice versa. So that's very specific. If another person incapacitates either of them, that doesn't give the points. 1 victory point for each successful hit made by Superman against Doomsday, and also vice versa. And then 1 victory point for each model incapacitated in general. So say Batman managed to take out Doomsday somehow, that would only award 1 victory point, not the 5. So that's it. That's the scenario we're doing. We'll be back with everything deployed. So here we are at deployment, and the heroes and villains have set sides. So Azrael has deployed up there on the actual monorail. Green Arrow and Red Hood are down there. Superman obviously has a specific place up here on the monorail. Doomsday is opposite him. Then down here we have the drowned Deathstroke, and then over there we have the Red Death basically up to their line as well. Kind of 6 inches give or take. Wanted them both on top of the monorail, so I had to change the values of how far apart they were supposed to be. So it is important who gets first turn. They'll be able to cause a lot of damage to the other. So without further ado, it's blue dice for the hero side, red dice for the villains. Going first in battle round 1 will be the villains. So Doomsday got things started off very explosively. He super jumped because he didn't want to fall off of the monorail just behind, so that cost 3. Then he spent 3 to pick up the chunk of the main station of the monorail, and Superman has flies, so the fall from him doing that would not have damaged him. He then threw it. Now, as per the rules of scenario, I feel like the rules for scenery being partially caught by the size of the thing being thrown still applies, so we did it that counted. So 1 bit of damage got done to this monorail station, 1 got done to this part of the structure. The rest of the damage was on an agility roll for Superman, which he failed, so he took 5 damage and was knocked down, and then he was out of range to do anything else, so Doomsday has banked 3 power with which to defend himself. This Superman incidentally has 12 power to start with. Now, has no way of regenerating his health, however, so he did get hurt badly. That was exactly 1 hit, so that's 1 victory point to the villains as we go over to the first activation for the heroes. And remember, the Batman, not on the table, He comes down whenever there would normally be a hero activation, doesn't necessarily need to be turn 1 either. So a lot to cover here as Superman Retaliated. This one, this Superman has a charge attack. I can't remember specifically what it's called, but it costs 1 power, and it just means anybody he ends within 2 inches of has to take an agility roll or take 2 damage. Doomsday failed his agility roll, so that was 2 damage and 1 hit for 1 victory point. Then overpowered his Super Punch, which is a once per game skill, normally costs 6 power, he overpowered it so it costs 7, overloaded it so it costs 7 to get through Doomsday buffing his physical defense. It got through with like a 25 or 24, so that did 5 damage. So that is 2 victory points for landing 2 hits. Doomsday took 7 damage in total, but, and this was also forgotten the last time Doomsday was on the table, Doomsday has a passive corrosive aura. For any miniature ending their activation within 2 inches of him, they take 1 damage. So Superman took 1 damage. And for the purposes of what counts as a hit for them hitting each other, we're just counting anything that does damage. So if Superman's charge passive counts, so does the corrosive aura. So 2 victory points, and then another victory point for the villains there, as we go back over to the villains, remembering that neither of these two can be targeted by any attacks. The Drowned activated from where she was standing next to Deathstroke. 2 power was used to move her 8 inches, her maximum move to roughly just there-ish. Then she used Dead Water Manipulation, which creates a pool, a 4-inch diameter pool of dead water, or dread water, whichever, within 8 inches. She created it where you can see the template. Then she used another 1 power to teleport to a dead water puddle within 12 inches. She can be placed anywhere within it, so she used that to cover even more ground, but also have kind of scenery intervening in case Red Hood decides to do any shooting. Technically that's going to disappear at the end of a turn, so it's not going to affect anything now. I don't think it does anything when anyone touches it, so it's just there for now. She banked 5 power because there's nothing else for her to do with it, but she cleared a lot of ground. Red Hood activated and spent 1 to move 5. It's a bit weird that his base movement is 5. I guess that's because he's an older model, because usually it's base move 4 for like normal humans. Either way, he moved 5. Then with his remaining 6 power, he did 2 overloaded handgun shots into the Drowned. She buffed her defense, so I think she was rocking 19 defense. In total for physical, 1 shot got through, which normally does 2 damage. However, Red Hood has a passive called Hunting, and what that does is if he is shooting someone who's already activated, he does +1 damage. So that's 3 damage. The other hit didn't get through for nothing. The Drowned does have regen 1, so she'll be regenerating 1 damage at the end of the turn, assuming she's conscious, but not too bad. Back over to the villains. Deathstroke activated next and just kind of edged away around this fight. I love the idea that these two are fighting just so fiercely and quickly that everyone else is just kind of ignoring them. So he moved around here to where you see him. He doesn't have the range to do anything else, so he spent 2 power to activate counterattack. So if he is attacked by a close combat attack, like by an arriving Batman or anyone who is able to get close to him, he automatically does 1 damage back for every attack that succeeds against him. That's it. He banked 3 power, so now it's either, well, I guess Batman could technically arrive, but we've still got Green Arrow and Jump Up Valley to choose from. Green Arrow activated and he moved for 2 power up to where he was. He has only 6 power, so you have to be very particular about what he does. So he fired his once per turn punch arrow at the Drowned, which did not get through her physical defense. He didn't have enough power to overload it if he wanted to fire a standard arrow afterwards, which he did, but that also could not get through her 19 or whatever it was physical defense, so you did nothing. So now it's over to the Red Death to end off the villain's turn, and then it's either just Azrael up there or potentially Batman can also appear to end the hero's turn. So as we go to the next activation, quick addendum, this Green Arrow actually has Elite Marksman, which is a +1 to hit. The standard arrow that got shot, that got shot at the Drowned got exactly even to her defense, but with the +1 would have beaten it, so she actually took 1 damage from that. Anyway, the Red Death moved 15 to get base to base with Green Arrow, tried to just do a combo strike, which did not manage to get through his defense, which he couldn't buff because he had no power left. Then he did a charge, overloaded it, and managed to do the hit, so Green Arrow got shoved 3 inches and also took 2 damage. So now it's either over to old Nightfall Batman up there, /Azrael, /Jump Valley, /etc, etc, etc, or Batman to round off the turn, or both, we'll see. So Jean displaced himself 12 inches with his back claw down to here. He then just did 2 claw attacks, one of which was overloaded to use up all his power. The Red Death did buff his physical defense. 1 still managed to get through, however, for 2 damage. And again, remember, in the Batman miniature game, Red Death has regeneration, but he doesn't in this, and the opposite is true for the Drowned. So a decision has also been made. Batman will be making his appearance, so there's still 1 more activation to go to round off Battle Round 1. So you can see where Batman has arrived, and just for arriving in that manner he dealt 1 damage to the drowned. He then tried to do his sneak attack, and remember on the turn in which he does this and arrives, all his powers cost 1 less and he ignores defensive improvements. That said, he rolled 2, 1, 1 because it was overloaded anyway to try and guarantee, rolled horrifically, so his once per game sneak attack failed. So instead he just did 2 combo strikes or punches, whatever they're called. Reinforced gloves. So they got through, 2 out of the 3 got through. Rather, he did 3 of them, I forgot, because the power cost went down from 3 to 2, and he had 6 power left. So all in all, 5 damage done to the drowned. The drowned is in her pale zone, so now that we're at the end of the turn, she'll be doing a roll to see whether or not she gives in and falls unconscious. If she does, she will not be regenerating. But we'll cover that properly in Recovery and Recap. So at the end of Battle Round 1, I just realised now that when I was doing the discussion of the Red Death's turn and the drowned as well, I got them mixed up with the way it is in the Batman miniature game. In this game, Red Death does have regeneration, in Batman he doesn't, and it's vice versa for the drowned. So the drowned doesn't have regeneration. Either way, she didn't fall unconscious, so she's still awake as we go into Battle Round 2, but the Red Death regenerated 1 health, Doomsday regenerated 1 health, which puts him 4 HP away from his pale zone, which is on par with Superman, so they're actually drawed, or it is a draw rather. And it is a draw on victory points as well, because the only points scored was Doomsday technically landing 2 hits on Superman, and Superman landing 2 hits on Doomsday. So as we go into Battle Round 2, it's all to play for. More likely to be the heroes going first. They need it, because Doomsday needs to get taken down. And it is going to be the heroes going first in Battle Round 2. So Battle Round 2 got started with a very fun activation for Superman. First he spent 3 to pick up the chunk of the monorail track, which made the cart crash down to the ground. Chucked it point blank at Doomsday, but Doomsday passed his agility roll, so it missed. He then opted instead to pick up Doomsday and chuck him as first of all, he tried to use his other once per game Frost Breath. Once again, Doomsday passed his agility roll, so it did half damage and only did 1, and lowered his speed by 3 or 2. Either way, speed is basically used for almost nothing. So then he spent another 3 to pick up Doomsday. This time he failed an agility roll, which was about time. Chucked him, and it's strength -1, damage done, so that's his 5 damage. Smashed him into this building, destroyed it. Doomsday is knocked down. He did spend 1 power to try and help resist the grab, but it didn't work. So that's 5 damage from the throw and 1 from the other once per game Frozen Breath. That puts Doomsday in his pale zone, so he'll be doing a knockout check at the end of the turn. For now though, it's over to the villains, and remember once again, in this turn, Superman and Doomsday can only hurt each other. So because Doomsday doesn't need to activate immediately, thanks to the only person who can actually attack him this turn or having already went, the Red Death activated for the villains instead. Spent 1 to move 10, because remember speedsters are very quick, moved behind Green Arrow, did once per game Supermass critical punch, overloaded it, smacked Green Arrow with it, it got through despite raising his physical defense against it, so that did 4 damage, I think, but it also pushes 3, so he was pushed into Red Hood, which does an extra damage to him, and 1 damage to Red Hood as well. He's in his pale zone, so if he's still standing by the end of a turn, he'll be doing a KO check as well. Also forgot to mention at the end of Superman's activation, but he landed 2 successful hits on Doomsday, so that's 2 more victory points. Finally, the Red Death spent his 1 remaining power, because he has Agile, so he's allowed to do 2 movements, as all speedsters do, I believe, to move 10, and he has Phase Shift, or whatever it's called, so he can teleport through scenery, so he's hiding himself on the far side of the fallen monorail. Multiverse Batman activated next. He stayed where he was. First of all, he used the Most Dangerous Man on Earth rule, which just lets you inflict a stats effect of your choice from a bunch on a model within 8, I think it is. Did Distract on the Drowned, I think that's the one it's called. It means she loses 2 physical defense, but she countered that by buffing her physical defense by spending a power, so essentially it made it null and void. After that, he unleashed 2 reinforced glove attacks that were overpowered. They both managed to get through her physical defense, despite it cancelling out the effect of the Most Dangerous Man on Earth. So 4 damage. She is 1 health away from her pale zone. Sorry, her blue zone rather. She's already in her pale zone. A quick addendum about Superman here. This Superman actually has Heroic Action, which is an interesting rule where the first attack he unleashes in a turn has +1 damage. In this turn, it doesn't matter, because his first act was picking up the scenery and chucking it. That missed. In turn 1, however, his first attack was successful. It hasn't affected the scores at all, it just means Doomsday has 1 more damage on him than he would otherwise have. Deathstroke activated next and moved up into base to base with Jean-Paul Valley. Spent 1 to do Distract 2 with his, what was it called? Trick? It's just called Trick. So Jean-Paul spent a power to counter that, basically in a similar way to the drowned. Deathstroke had 4 power left. He used his once per game Assassin's Strike and did not get through the roll required. Rolled a 2 and a 1. He does have Master Fighter, which allows him to roll one of the hit dice. He rolled the 1 into a 1. So that's his once per game gone. Didn't really do much there, but he is sturdy. He's got ridiculously good physical defense, so he's pretty tough. We'll see if he's the target of the next activation in a moment. Green Arrow activated next and used his once per game hook arrow to displace himself 12 inches up to there, basically to try and protect himself, because there is no way he could escape the Red Death's threat range and he's very low on health. So he popped up there. He didn't have much left to do with 2 power, so he shot a standard arrow, which is, he's got like 16 inches range on that. So he shot it at the drowned, did 1 damage. That put drowned in her blue zone, so she has to immediately take another test to see if she passes out. She passed it. It's a stamina test. She passed it. She's still conscious, but she is now she's 3 HP away from death. Back over to the villains. So sensing that the end might be near, the drowned moved 2 into base to base with Red Hood, unleashed 3 trident attacks. He buffed his physical defense to make it harder to get through, and the drowned is just not her day today. Bryce Wayne just needs to go have a lie down and a cup of tea. All of them failed to get through, despite having +1 to hit from Elite Fighter. No damage there at all. So now it's over to either Jean-Paul Valley or the Red Hood for the hero side. So the Red Hood decided to retaliate. He stood still. He only had 6 power. He did his once per game takedown, which cost 5. He overloaded it to make it 6. And he used it. It got through and did 6 damage to Bryce Wayne, and she is dead. Now, just want to point out that he rolled, well, it was a bad roll. In fact, it's still there. So 7-1-1. So 9 plus, he has +1 bonus attack because he's still in his healthy part of his health. So that would be 10 plus his base attack of 6 or 7. Basically what I'm saying is it made him even with what her defense currently is, except when she's in her blue zone, she loses 1 to all defense categories. If it wasn't for that, the attack would have failed. But because she was in her blue zone, it managed to get through. So there is 1 victory point for an enemy model incapacitated for the heroes. Doomsday activated. He stood up and closed the distance to Superman again. He just unleashed 2 brutal strikes, or whatever they're called. They're irresistible, so it does ignore resistance 2 that Superman has to physical and energy defense. He spent one of his 2 remaining power to buff his defense, however, and it made the difference. Neither of them got through. However, he's in the 2-inch bubble AoE corrosive aura, so Superman still took 1 damage at the end of the turn, so that's still 1 more victory point to the villains. And now it's over to Jean-Paul Valley to end off Battle Round 2 entirely. So not a flashy finish to the end of Battle Round 2. Jean-Paul Valley stayed still. He used his once per game hand flamethrowers on Slade, but Slade passed his agility roll, so they do half damage rounding fractions down, so 3 becomes 1 damage, and that is it. He tried to do one last combo strike after that, or punch, whatever it is for him. It's called claws, because he has his claws. But either way, only 1 damage to Deathstroke. And that takes us to the end of Battle Round 2. We'll do the recap and whatnot in a second after KO checks. So at the end of Battle Round 2, Doomsday had a KO check and he passed it. He also regened 1 HP. Red Death regenerated 1 HP back to full health. Green Arrow had a KO check and he also passed it. In terms of victory points gained, the drowned got taken out for 1 victory point. Superman landed 2 blows on Doomsday for 2 victory points. And in return, Doomsday landed 1 blow on Superman for 1 victory point, which I believe puts it at 5-3. Yep, 5-3 to the heroes as we go into Battle Round 3. The important thing is now, though, Doomsday and Superman can attack other people, can be attacked by other people, etc. Everything is now as a normal game would be. The special rules for the scenario no longer apply. And if the villains want, they are privy to a pass as well now. And going first in Battle Round 3 will be the villains. So to get Battle Round 3 started, Doomsday activated, and he started with a Bone Breaker, which is a 2-inch bubble attack around him, so it's an agility roll, and if you pass you take half damage rounding down, etc. But Superman failed the agility roll, so that was 4 damage right there. Then there was an extra 3 from landing a strike as well. He did try buffing his defense. Doomsday had 3 power left over. He attempted to grab and throw Superman, but he passed that roll. The roll didn't do enough physical to get through his buff defense. But still, 7 damage, that's him in his pale zone, and he'll be doing a KO check at the end of the turn. So that's it, over to the heroes. It was Superman's turn next to give as good as he got, to try and do anything he can. Also, that shouldn't be there because he's used all his power. First of all, he tried to just do an overloaded super punch. Not the once per game one, I just mean like his normal super punch, which failed, so that missed out on the heroic action bonus damage as well. So instead he tried to throw Doomsday. He succeeded in landing that hit with overloading it. Chucked Doomsday over here into the pillar, so it does strength -1, so that was 5 damage. Then from that safe range out of his corrosive aura, he shot his eye lasers for an additional 2 damage, so 7 damage in total. That put Doomsday into his blue zone, which means he had to immediately take a KO test. He passed it though, so he's still conscious, and that's 2 more victory points for landing 2 successful hits, putting the heroes 2 points ahead, I believe. The Red Death activated next, and he had a bit of a complicated turn thanks to a rule he has called Wall Crawl or Wall Climb. It basically just means he's so fast he can scale up any surface. So he spent 2 and ran up this barrier here to get up there and close the distance to where Green Arrow was. Did a charge attack, which does 2 damage, and also pushes. So he pushed Green Arrow off. Green Arrow fell 6 inches rather, and the damage bracket he's in is 6 to 9 inches for the fall, which did 2 more damage to him. That put him into his pale zone. He's not dead, he's on 1 HP, but he failed his stamina roll, that's the one, so he is knocked out. So he's not dead, but he is knocked out and heavily wounded. With 2 of his 3 remaining power, he then used Agile to do another movement action to run up, run down, and end up there with 1 power left over. Red Hood activated and moved with 2 power to move his full allocation to where you see him. He can shoot his guns 10 inches, so he did 2 gun attacks on Doomsday, because now he can shoot him since it's after turn 2, but was not able to pierce his physical defense, so he ended his turn banking 1 power for buffing his own defense if he needs to. So now it's just Slade that can go for the villains, so over to him. So Deathstroke activated, almost called him Death Strike for some reason. Anyway, he moved just 1, which is 5 inches for him, and his bowstaff has a 2-inch range for physical attack. He struck Green Arrow on the ground, bopped him on the head for 2 damage. Green Arrow is dead for 1 victory point. He then spent 2 power to activate counter attack, and then spent his last 2 power to shoot Jean-Paul Valley in the back, but that didn't pierce his back armour. So a reasonably good turn compared to last time. Now it's over to Jean-Paul and also Bruce to end the hero turn. Multiverse Batman activated next and used his once per turn Batclaw to displace 12 to where you can see him. He then used 2 overloaded Batarangs on Doomsday. He used those because they only do 1 damage each, and he wanted to help wound Doomsday but not kill him, because otherwise he's giving up 5 victory points. So he did 1 damage with each Batarang that he got through with, rolling the 3 dice to make it easier. So that's 2 damage. Doomsday's on 1 HP, but when the turn rolls over he will go back to 2 HP because he has regen 1, unless he passes out at the end of the turn, in which case Superman has a very easy job in the next turn. So now it's just over to Azrael to end the turn. So to end off the turn, just like to point out something that was done incorrectly with Deathstroke. Counterattack is not a stance you activate, it's actually just a reactionary power you can use every time he's targeted by a, I think it's specifically specified physical? Well, either way, it's not just like you pay the cost and then he's got it activated. So we're going to say that yes, he had 2 power left over and could activate it once when Jean-Paul attacked him, so Jean-Paul took 1 damage. He does also have a passive where the attack power of every attack used against him increases by 1, which is kind of annoying. But either way, 1 claw attack managed to get through for 2 damage, and that's it. Jean-Paul, that's the first bit of damage he's taken, so he's in no danger, and Deathstroke himself is basically unhurt. I think he's like 5 HP away from dropping to his pale zone. So that takes us to the end of the turn. We'll be back with recovery, recap, etc. So as the battlefield gets more and more destroyed, at the end of battle round 3, neither Doomsday or Superman gave in to their wounds, so both of them are still conscious as we go into round 4. Green Arrow was taken out, so a victory point to the villains for that, and when you add on the hits successfully landed by Doomsday and Superman, there is 1 point in it in the hero's favour. So with that, we are going into battle round 4. It might be very pivotal who goes first, and it is going to be the heroes taking turns. That is very, very important. So as perhaps expected, Superman activated, he overloaded his heat vision, shot at Doomsday, did 2 damage and killed him for 5 victory points as per the scenario. Technically maybe 6, because a model is also incapacitated. Hopefully that won't matter, because that could be an argument waiting to happen, honestly. But either way, the thing is, yes, it's basically technically over now. However, When Doomsday dies, he has a rule called Revival. At the end of the following activation turn, in other words, at the end of turn 5, he comes back on the battlefield at full health, in his deployment, immune to whatever killed him. So he's now immune to any energy-based attack when he comes back. And that does also mean in turn 6, if there's still a chance, he could maybe kill Superman, because Superman's kind of wounded and could be more wounded by then, to kind of even out the points. We'll see. Oh, and also for the rest of Superman's turn, he then flew over here, tried to pick up the Red Death to chuck him, but the Red Death defended against the grab attempt. Just, they're moving around at super speed. Over to the villains. The Red Death was over there, but he phased through the scenery over here to attack Jean-Paul Valley. He tried a overloaded charge and it failed. And then he used the combo strike with his last 2 power and it also failed. So he's also -1 to all defenses now because he used up all his tokens and he has the 2 tired trait that speedsters have. Wasn't able to do anything, which is not good. Back over to the heroes. Red Hood activated and attacked the Red Death after spending 1 power to move 5. 3 handgun attacks. Didn't overload any of them, but it doesn't matter. All 3 got through for 2 damage each, so that's 6 damage. That puts him in his pale zone for now. And now it's back over to only Slade. Just Slade for the villains. So Deathstroke activated, moved 5 to get into contact with Red Hood. Did 3 bow strikes against him, and kind of repeating what Red Hood did to Red Death. All of them landed 2 damage each for 6 damage, so that's Red Hood in his pale zone. So now it's over to Batman and Batman to end off the turn. So to quickly go over those last 2 activations. Jean-Paul Valley stayed still, did 3 claw attacks on the Red Death. 2 of them got through for a total of 4 damage. Multiverse Batman backclawed into where you can see him, right next to Slade. Tried to do a couple of reinforced glove attacks, only 1 got through for 2 damage. And that takes us to the end of Battle Round 4 for recovery and recap. So at the end of that dramatic battle round, Doomsday was taken out for 5 victory points because Superman was the one who dealt the killing blow, plus an additional 1 victory point just for Superman hitting Doomsday 1 more time, which puts them way out in front. The enemy side didn't achieve anything this turn. Now what's important though is Superman actually succumbed to his wounds and has fallen unconscious, which is very like the comic, honestly. He defeated Doomsday and then his body just gave out. The Red Death also gave in to his wounds and has passed out. The Red Hood, however, has managed to stay conscious. So with that said and done, let us see who is going first in the penultimate battle round, keeping in mind at the end of this battle round 5, Doomsday comes back. Oh, it's going to be the heroes. Okay. To get Battle Round 5 started, Jean-Paul Valley activated. He unleashed 4 claw attacks on the downed Red Death, 3 of which got through for 6 damage and killed him. So that's an extra victory point. It also means if Deathstroke manages to go down in this turn, the game just ends via tabling. So we'll see what he can do when it's his turn now. So Deathstroke did indeed activate. He tried to do 3 bow strikes on Red Hood because he's the most wounded and easiest to get a victory point off of. They all failed. He banked 1 for defense against physical because everyone around him does physical, and now it's just going to come down to whether Red Hood and Batman can take him out, so we'll be back once we check and see if that happens. So after Red Hood and Batman's activations, they were able to do 6 damage to Slade and knock him out because he failed his test upon reaching the blue part of his health. He did not die though. He's got, what is it, 3 HP? 2 HP left. So he is alive and technically the game will go to turn 6, and that's important because Superman tried to activate and you have to do another stamina test to see if you wake up. He didn't. He has 12 stamina and got 13. So as the last turn starts and Doomsday reappears on the field, he is unconscious and the villains get first turn. So the only thing that matters is Doomsday is going to appear over there and he's going to basically get a turn to try and kill Superman to make back those 5 points. We will jump into turn 6 and see if that happens. So this is just going to be a quick recap of Battle Round 6. Also between turns, Red Hood was doing another stamina test. He failed it, so he actually fell unconscious as well. But anyway, Doomsday appeared. He super jumped into the unconscious Superman. His power was a little low because his super jump is 4 for whatever reason. So he attacked Superman, did 3 damage. Even if his other attack had landed for another 3 damage, Superman would have had 1 or 2 HP left. So Doomsday did not kill him. Did score 1 victory point for hitting that. And also I forgot about his aura again actually, so that would be another, is it 1 damage or 2 damage? What was it again? It's 1 damage. So he actually did 4. But that did not kill him. Let me just double check here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, even if his other hit had landed, Superman would be on exactly 1 HP. So Doomsday has not killed him. Did score 2 extra victory points, however, but Slade is knocked out. Any one of these could probably finish him off. He's got 2 HP. So, I mean, we might as well play hero action, I guess. See if Batman just finishes him off to balance out those points. And then we'll be back with the final scores. So one quick activation of Batman later, Slade did indeed go down, so that's another victory point for the heroes. Bringing us to the end of the game, that was a really, really fun match, just seeing Superman and Doomsday just go nuts on each other, unabated by anyone else being able to join the fight. He's back on full health, so if the game went on beyond 6 turns, everyone else would die, almost certainly. But for the purposes of this game, it is a hero victory as 15 victory points, play 8. But really, at the end of the day, all of us were the winners here, because just seeing that fight unfold was very fun. A lot of scenery got destroyed. That was very fun. The table is now going to get scrapped, rebuilt to some kind of winter theme for future DC and Batman games, so look out for those in the future. In November, around about towards the end, we'll also be dabbling with Marvel Crisis Protocol if you're interested. So thank you very much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed. There'll be more content to come in the future. See you then. Ta for now.